The U.S. Department of Education's fumbled rollout of this year's new free application for the federal student aid form could impact enrollment at some colleges and universities. Those delays of student loan packages are making it difficult for enrollment decisions. Institute for Student Loan Advisors President Betsy Mayotte is back with us to go over it all, the deadlines and what you need to know. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we saw quite a tricky and difficult rollout for the FAFSA form this year, and they saw delay after delay, but the larger universities, they probably are in a better position to weather the confusion in those delays because they are a larger school, whereas the smaller ones will see a hit because they're very dependent on tuition. Wondering if you think that that's going to hurt enrollment across the board or just at certain universities and colleges?
We actually are seeing enrollment down across the board. Something like 24% of the number of families that have filled out the FAFSA is down about 24%. We won't know how that actually affects enrollment until August or September when classes are supposed to start, but that's a pretty good indicator. And enrollment is down for other reasons as well. We are finding that some families are starting to look at the higher cost of education that we've seen in the last decade or so and wondering at the value of that, and that has reduced enrollment as well.
Now, we just passed the deadline for the 2024-25 school year deadline, which was June 30th. With all the delays in the aid packages, do you think that they're going to waive the deadline for students, or are they sticking to it?
It appears at this point that they are sticking to that deadline. It tends to be a firm federal deadline.
Got it. Then what is the next deadline for folks who are then looking at the spring of 2025?
So for borrowers that are looking at the spring of 2025, they should be looking to fill out the FAFSA and whatever financial aid forms their school requires as soon as possible.
Okay. Now, they recently made some changes and updates to the system. What are some of the key changes that were made, and what should families know before they go and sit down and fill this out?
So there's good news and bad news. Most of it's good news. There's a reason they called it the FAFSA simplification. For many families, the number of questions they have to answer on the FAFSA is dramatically reduced, as few as 18. There also is going to cause a potential increase for lower income families' eligibility for that so-called free money, such as Pell Grants. The downside, the bad news is there's no longer an allowance if you have multiple children in school at the same time. Now, some colleges do make that allowance on their own, but it used to be automatic as part of the FAFSA calculation, and that's no longer the case.
Oh boy, okay, so and it is expensive. So let's say that aid package just didn't come in quick enough this year. Parents are scrambling to find ways to offset the cost. What are some other financial aid options that they could look into and consider?
Yeah, so there's always scholarships. It's a little late in the game for this fall for scholarships, but not completely so. For people that are looking to attend school next year, now's the time to be looking for those scholarships. And there's a lot of free scholarship searches out there. I tend to warn people to stay away from private student loans when they can. Private student loans tend to have few, if any, lower payment options. And they can become, if there's a financial crisis in the future, they can be really difficult to manage. There's always federal Parent Plus loans. There's work study. There's going on a payment plan at the college where you pay the balance over months during the school year. There's always going to, say, a community college for the first 2 years to save money and then transferring into that dream school, or even going part-time and working.
Yeah, definitely a lot of options. People can weigh those as they get ready to go back to school. We're still in the heat of summer, though, so we don't want to think too much about it. But when it comes to the money, you've got to be organized, and you always help us with that, Betsy. Thank you so much for joining us right here.
My pleasure.